Hi, my name is Ian. Hello, King's Table Church family. It is a joy to be up here and to be sharing the Word of God with you all. I just want to take a moment and I want to thank Steve and Bryce, though he's not here, and all our pastoral residents and everyone else. It has been an honor and a blessing, and I love you, Steve. Yeah, we are in Luke 14:25-35 today. Um, so I have a friend, and his name is Crosh. And yeah, we're going to call him that for today. We're going to call him Crosh. Nobody here knows him. You weren't there. You didn't see this scene. You didn't experience this at all. Crosh is a really generous guy. He's got big vision. He's got a big heart. And one day he decided to organize a hike for our small group, a bunch of people in our small group. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great, Crosh. How can I help? How can I sign up? What can I do to help organize this? And Crosh is telling me about this hike, and he's like, oh, we're going to get to this lake, and we're going to have a little luncheon there, a fabulous little dinner for like us and the 20 people. And I'm like, okay. Like I don't have a barbecue that's transportable or anything, but I've got like a small indoor catering butane burner. I could bring that. And Cross is like, sure, bring that. And he's going on, he's telling me this vision, and something in the back of my brain is just sort of like running. And I'm like, I don't think you like have thought this through at all. I don't think this is planned out. I think this is probably doomed for failure. Um, but I didn't say anything. I'm like, I volunteered. I did my part. I don't want to like suddenly be burdened with getting all of this done. So I don't say anything. I just like stay quiet and I don't say a thing. Day of the hike comes. And it's a beautiful day. There is like 20 of us, and we all go on this hike, and we get to the lake, and we're down by the lakeside, and it's time for the barbecue. And Crosh has bought a lot of food and nothing else. And it is my butane burner with one pan. We don't even have tongs, um, or anything else. And the wind is blowing. And if you know, like indoor butane burners, this is not a barbecue. This is not propane. This is like meant for indoor. And with the wind coming off the lake, hitting us sideways, it basically has the heat of a candlestick, like a birthday candle. Like it is not hot. And what food has Crosh brought? What food has he brought? Did he bring hot dogs? No. Did he bring like already cooked meat that just needed a little reheating? No. Oh, he brought raw chicken legs. Everyone loves undercooked chicken, don't they? Um, so with a pair of pliers, I have to find the least windy spot possible in order to cook these chicken legs, which happens to be in a ditch. So if you can imagine it, I am literally crouched down in a ditch, looking up at everyone else while they're standing around with a pair of tweezer pliers, flipping chicken legs on the one dirty pan that I found on my butane burner, being like, it'll be another 20 minutes for the first leg, folks. That was a good day. That was a good day. By mercy and sheer panic, I think everyone had enough to eat, and it was actually a great day, and it all worked out in the end. Um, but I say all of this just to say that, you know, if I had stopped and I had asked and I had counted what was going on here and I had examined and like spoken to Crosh in the beginning and been like, what's going on here? I could have found out exactly what needed to be needed. I could have found out exactly what this was going to cost and exactly what I needed to get done to have made this like a proper barbecue picnic that could have worked out. But I didn't do that. The terms weren't hidden. I simply had to think and ask. 20 people, raw chicken, wrong kind of stove, open lakeside, cold wind, Nova Scotia. Everything was right there. I just didn't stop to count. And that's the thing. Not knowing isn't the problem. Not counting is. In this passage that the lovely Rebecca just read for us, that is what Jesus is pressing on. He is going to make the crowd stop and count before they take one more step with him. And we will hopefully today also be stopping and counting. This is Pentecost Sunday, which is a thing I'm going to come back to in a bit. Because if Jesus is about to name a cost this total, and he is, the question underneath all of it, how does anyone actually follow him then? We will get there. But first, let us look at the cost. If you were here last week, Bryce was teaching Luke 14 as well. We're still in the same chapter as last week. Same chapter, same evening, same dinner party is going on. And Jesus might as well have just stood up from the dinner table and has gone and stepped outside. And there's a large crowd that has been following him for the last few chapters. He turns to them. Verse 25. Now, great crowds were traveling with him. So he turned and he said to them. Jesus turns to the people, he looks at them, and he wants to tell them the full cost that they're about to take on. Jesus knows where this road is going to end. He has already told his closest people twice in the book of Luke that this road ends in rejection, betrayal, and death. Not a throne, but a cross. And he will not let this crowd follow him anymore, carrying a story that isn't true. Jesus is going to give the crowd 3 hard sayings. 3 times the phrase lands, "You cannot be my disciple." The first saying is about love, loyalty, and self. Let's look at what Jesus says here in verse 26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. I know this can sound a little extreme. It is extreme. Luke is the only gospel that includes yes, and even your own life, not just priority over other relationships that Jesus is claiming. He is claiming authority over your very own self. I use this line a lot, but Bonhoeffer, who spent his life on this and died proving it, wrote famously, "When Christ calls a man, he bids him come and die. Not come and reorganize your priorities. Come and die." And then Jesus gives us the second saying. Verse 27, "Whoever does not bear his own cross and comes after me cannot be my disciple." I must confess that we have made this phrase really small. That's just my cross to bear. It's something we say every once in a while. And we usually mean it as like, I'm got a really difficult coworker. My back, ooh, what a cross I bear. A frustrating family dynamic. A season of inconvenience that we just can't get rid of. But cross-bearing for a first century street wasn't a metaphor for general hardship. It wasn't a poetic way of just saying, my life is a little difficult. It was Roman terror in public. A condemned person made to carry the instrument of their execution through the streets while everyone watched. To the crowd that Jesus is talking to, many of them probably have seen men hanging outside the towns. Some have seen their neighbors taken away. Some would have heard the mothers wailing. So when Jesus says, carry your own cross, nobody in that crowd was thinking, yes, spiritual inconvenience. They thought death, shame, and finality. A road you don't come back from. I think Jesus knows when humans hear these difficult things, that we tend to spiritualize them. We like to admire them. We assume that Jesus meant something slightly less than what he said. So we're given two stories next, and first in verse 28 to 30. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, doesn't first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, he has laid the foundation and cannot finish it. All the onlookers will begin to ridicule him, saying, "This man started to build and wasn't able to finish." A man wants to build a tower. He lays the foundation, runs out of money. He can't finish building the thing that he wanted to start. And everyone in town is mocking him about it. There's the man who started something he couldn't actually ever afford to complete. You can probably feel the point here. And then, follow up, Jesus gives us our second story, 31 and 32. Or what king, going to war against another king, will not first sit down and decide if he is able with 10,000 to oppose the ones who comes against him with 20,000? If not, while the other is still far off, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. A king considers going to war against a king with twice his forces. He sits down, he calculates, he realizes this is probably a fight I'm not going to win. So, while his opposition is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks for terms of peace. If you cannot out-argue Jesus' claim on your life, if you cannot out-earn it, outrun it, out-rationalize it, then the wise move is not to march against him, is to send a delegation while there is still time. Ask for terms of peace. Stop, surrender, before you're further into a half-built life that you can't get yourself out of. And then Jesus will draw a conclusion. Verse 33. In the same way, therefore, every one of you who does not renounce all his possessions cannot be my disciple. This is not condition 3 in a series. This is our conclusion. When you actually count, when the parables land, this is where honest counting will end us at. It costs everything you have. And Luke, being Luke, he tends to get really specific with these things. He always does. Luke 18, sell all that you have. Luke 19, Zacchaeus, half of everything on the spot. Possessions are where Luke keeps going and pressing because he knows that's where we will reliably hold back. The shape of obedience may differ from disciple to disciple, but the ownership that Christ has in your life does not change. Every hand remains open before Jesus. Nothing is finally yours to keep. Have you counted that? Cannot be my disciple. Family, cross, everything. 3 doors, and none of them are wide. I want to talk for a moment about a way that condition can look in a real life. I'm going to talk about my own life. I don't usually tell this to big rooms of people like this, which seems as I say I want to be a preacher one day is a weird thing for me to say. But I was married to a man when I first walked into a church. We had been together through most of our 30s. I loved him. Yet one day he claimed to have started following Jesus. And I remember one night crying and yelling at him because I knew that following Jesus would place a claim on his life that our relationship could not survive. I was furious. I was frightened. I didn't want to lose him. And somewhere in all of that, in the weeks to come, I came to start following Christ as well. And then I was the one who knew, as Romans 1 describes, that our disordered desires are a consequence of exchanging the truth of God for a lie, that God had a claim on my life, and something was going to have to change. We desperately wanted to find a middle way. Our relationship just kept fraying. Eventually, he counted the cost of following Christ and found it a cost too high. And he put it to me, a direct reversal of the night where I had confronted him all that time ago. Choose him or Jesus. I chose Jesus. I chose to divorce a man that I loved. And so often it felt like devastation. I could not make it feel clean, but I could only trust in him. I did not understand everything. I did not feel heroic. I only knew that Jesus had become Lord and that his lordship had reached even there. That is only one place that the cost has become visible in my life. The only question is, whether has Jesus the right to name something in your life? Sometimes it is not one decisive moment. Sometimes it's just a slow work of obedience. But there's something I want to say about us, about King's Table. And I say this with genuine affection. We have a very professional feel. We have pastoral residents, visiting missions, slinkies, dedicated people who have moved here to be part of our church family, people who carry the work here with real commitment, and God bless them for it. I just think that can produce in some of us, not intentionally, but almost without noticing, a particular posture in some of us. I'm not the professional Christian. I can admire costly obedience from a safe distance. Sort of like watching the television series Survivor and saying, that counts as having an outdoorsy lifestyle. Now, there are real times for healing and receiving. The church should make room for these. Jesus himself told his disciples to wait before they moved. Receiving isn't always avoidance. But there is also a baptized form of avoidance that calls comfort wisdom, that stays in the receiving posture year after year, that is not always about to step into obedience when the conditions are right. I know that person. I have been that person. A journey that was mainly towards comfort. We shouldn't assume that Christian obedience will always be safe, convenient, or socially neutral. Some of what Jesus says about money, sex, truth, forgiveness, worship, and allegiance will become expensive to say out loud. Some of it already has. Is this what any of you thought you were agreeing to? And then there's the vision that isn't even conflict. It's just fatigue. There are days for me when Jesus feels like more than I want to do that day. No heart in it, that I'm just tired and I would rather be scrolling on my phone and not care. Maybe you know some of that. And then there are the last words of our text today, verse 34 and 35. Now, salt is good, but if salt should lose its taste, how will it be made salty? If it isn't fit for soil or for the manure pile, then throw it out. Let anyone who has ears to hear listen. A plain warning. Where is the giving managed so that it never actually hurts? Where is the serving only as long as it demands nothing relationally? Where is the prayer life running at the minimum that you could still call a prayer life? Where is the thing that keeps almost being surrendered and keeps finding a way not to be? What does saltlessness feel like from the inside? Not like a crisis, but like a Tuesday. You showed up, you sang, you drove home, you had dinner, you watched something, you slept, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, the thing that made any of this matter left. You don't know when, you don't know how. It feels like nothing, like regular life. We hear the warnings, we nod, and we drive home. Flavorless salt is not salt. Half-committed discipleship is not discipleship. This passage isn't aimed at people outside the church. It is aimed at the people in one. You who show up, you who know every song, who say you follow Jesus, and yet you are holding something back. Your family, yourself, your possessions, anything. And what Jesus says about this is not try harder. It's not do better. It's you're useless and you will be thrown out. This text isn't describing someone who walked away, who stopped coming, who rejected Jesus publicly. It's describing someone who keeps showing up, but is holding something back. And is something that God has no use for. There is no path back described here. Just out. I'll go first. There is saltlessness in my life. I am not being the husband to Rebecca that I should be. My prayer life is sometimes closer to dead than alive. I walk through my days with headphones in rather than present to the people around me. There is places where the cost is named and I haven't chosen. I know what they are, and I am still calculating. And Lord, before I give anything to this room, I need to say this to you. I've been trying to give away something that I desperately need for myself. Let anyone who has ears to hear listen. But there's only one thing that I know how to say from here. He kept walking down this road towards Jerusalem, towards the cross at the end of it. He didn't negotiate. He didn't find a way around it. He went. What he walked towards is not what he's asking you to carry. Your cross is the cost of following him. His was for something else entirely. Our cross does not save us. Discipleship is costly, but it is not atoning. Obedience follows mercy. It does not purchase it. Amen. Discipleship, 700 years ago, before this had happened, someone wrote this. All of us, like sheep, have strayed away. We have left God's paths to follow our own. Yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. Not on you, on him. But God showed his great love for us by sending Christ to die for us while we were still sinners. While we were going to scroll on our phones instead, he was already walking. Not by your trying harder, but by his dying completely. Your saltless season brought into the light, absorbed into mercy. Your quiet exits, confessed and covered. The form without fire, brought to him and forgiven, not because it was small, but because he was not. And then, on the third day, the tomb was empty. The stone rolled away. The grave clothes folded. And he was alive, walking, eating, speaking on the beach in the early morning with fishermen who could not stop weeping. The resurrection is not less than doctrine, but it is more than a proposition you defend. It is the presence that carries you. It is love. It is restoration. It is the living Christ meeting his failed disciples on the shore. The road leads somewhere, to him. He is alive. He is here. He is glorious. He is more loving than anything that has been taken, more present than anything that has walked away. O death, where is your victory? O death, where is your sting? Today is Pentecost. He did not only walk out of the grave, he kept walking toward the disciples who had failed him with a gift that they could not generate for themselves. Luke, who wrote this passage, who wrote Luke 14, he also wrote Acts. The same author who records the impossible cost recorded the impossible gift. After the resurrection, Jesus stood with these same disciples, the ones who had heard the terms and fled, who had hidden behind locked doors, and said, "Stay here in the city until the Holy Spirit comes and fills you with powers from heaven." He didn't say, "Oh, you've seen the resurrection now. Surely you can manage this." He said, "Wait, I am sending what you cannot generate yourself." And then the Spirit came. And Peter, who had denied Jesus 3 times in a courtyard, stood up in Jerusalem before thousands and proclaimed the risen Lord. Not because the terms had changed, not because the road had gotten easier, but because the Spirit had come. He is the presence of the living Christ, given to failed disciples, not feeling or willpower. The Spirit brings the life of risen Jesus into his people. The Spirit does not make Luke 14 optional. He makes Luke 14 possible. The Spirit does not make the road less narrow. He makes the disciple less alone. Saltlessness is what happens when we try to carry the terms in our own strength, when the structure remains and the flame has gone out. Pentecost is God refusing to leave his people like that. He kindles the fire again. He kept walking toward the cross. He kept walking into death. He kept walking out of the grave. And by his Spirit, he keeps walking with his people still. He kept walking when no one else would. He kept walking when it cost him everything. He kept walking when the sin was yours, not his. He kept walking so that you could walk. The Spirit has come. In just a moment, we're going to take 5 minutes. And I would like, if we could all, to name something specifically in our lives. What would it actually cost you to start following Jesus all the way? Not in general, in your actual life, with your money, with your relationships, with the thing that you've almost been surrendering for years and just haven't done it yet. Name it before God, and then pray for the Spirit's help to obey. Lord, show me what I signed up for. I know what it cost him. I choose to follow. He kept walking. The road is open. The road leads somewhere. To him. Come and follow.